this better?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll try video and we'll see how it goes. With 4 of us on at this household, it's a little dicey. So Rick, I think we can probably get going. It's 3 past and we have a lot to talk about.
I'm recording and we're ready to go.
Okay, great. Well, greetings everybody here in a very rainy day in Northern California. I hope you guys are all staying healthy and well. I appreciate your attendance at our dual enrollment subcommittee meeting. We had a really great response to the survey and to this meeting invite. And I'm looking forward to getting into reviewing a lot of the suggested enhancements that we've received from many of you. And so if for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jane Linder. I'm the product manager for our Student Success Suite, which includes CCCApply, all 3 applications, the standard, the international, the California College Promise, also non-credit, and MyPath, and the Open CCC account creation. So we've grouped all those into the Student Success Suite because these are our student-facing applications. So you're going to be hearing that term a lot. Mike Caruso is our product owner. Jennifer Coleman, who's here, is our statewide program director, and Mr. Snodgrass is our wonderful project manager who helps us organize things. So those are that's my welcome for our CCCTC team here. I'd like to take a little bit of time if we could. This is our first subcommittee meeting. Many of you I've met with over the past several months as I've kind of taken over CCCApply. But I would, if we have an opportunity here, to go through just a quick 30-second introduction for those of you. We won't be doing this at any other meeting, but I would like to just understand, we've invited a lot of high school and CSU people to this meeting, and I'd like to understand what kind of representation we have here. So if you could chat in the chat who you are, what school you're with, and a little bit about what role you play, that would be great. And then if you wouldn't mind, so that I can get to know your voice a little bit, just giving a quick intro. And maybe what we can do is just go in order of the chat. What do you think, Rick?
Sure.
So if for those of you who've already started signing into the chat, if we want to start from the top of that and work our way down. So that means we would start with Gabriella.
Hi, my name is Gabriela Diaz-Laris, and I'm one of the counselors at Ballard High School. And our other counselor, Ramon Murillo, does most of the dual enrollment, but I've been trying to help as much as I can as well.
Great. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Okay, Deb.
Hey, Jane and group. This is Deb Barker Garcia. I work with the Chancellor's Office, specifically with Educational Services and Support and the TAP team. I attend these things just to make sure we're understanding the needs and can provide Jane and the tech team any support or backup that they need. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Deb.
Oh.
All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kylie Campbell. I am one of the Outreach and Early College Program Directors at Bakersfield College, and my counterpart is also with us, so you'll hear from her. We work with students every day on CCCApply, and these are 9th grade students all the way through our matriculating seniors. So very excited to be here. Thank you.
Can't talk to you. Jason, are you there?
My name is Jason Ralphs. I'm the Interim Director of Admissions and Records for the Los Rios Community College District.
Great. That's pretty local to me. So
You guys are all muted, so just pull yourself off mute when you're coming up.
all right. So Brandon.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Brandon Hildreth, and I am the Director for Dual Enrollment at College of the Sequoias.
Good to see you, Brandon. All right, Stephanie.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Martin, and I am a counselor at Madera South High School, and I'm one of the dual enrollment coordinators.
Great.
Laura?
All right, unmute. I'm Laura Alanis. I'm a counselor from Madera South High School, and I'm also the dual enrollment coordinator there.
Welcome.
Hello, I'm Meredith. I am Stephanie Martin's school counseling intern.
Great. Really good to have you join us. Thank you.
Hey guys, just remember to put your school name in the chat, so I'll have that. Thanks.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ben Duran. I'm the Executive Director of the Central Valley Higher Education Consortium. Here in Central Valley, our office is located in Fresno, but we serve 9 counties here in the Central Valley.
Great.
It's good to meet y'all.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Ben.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Ashley Ward. I am Kylie's counterpart at Bakersfield College. I am also a program director for Outreach in Early College.
Hey, Ashley. All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angel Ramirez. I'm the Operations and Finance Manager for the Central Valley Higher Ed Consortium. I'm here with Ben.
Great. Thank you. Anna?
Is she there?
I'm here. I'm just
Okay.
trying to get off camera. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Salazar. I am the registrar at East LA College. East LA College is one of the 9 LACCD campuses, and I oversee the K-12 application process and dual enrollment.
Great. Yes, that's from my old stomping grounds. I used to spend a bit of time at your college for swim meets.
Oh, yes, we have a really nice swim stadium.
Yeah, beautiful. It's great. Okay, who do we have next?
Hi, I'm Betty Gloria Culver. I'm the Director of Institutional Research at the Los Rios Community College District Office.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Regina Miller. I'm the Assistant Director for Admissions and Records at Riverside City College, and I oversee all of the paperwork, processing, and registration of our dual enrollment CCAP students.
Great. Thank you, Regina. All right. Well, that's what we have for now, and we'll try to catch up with everybody later. But thanks again. I think we have a really great representation here. It's great to see everyone from East LA up to College of the Sequoias. We tried to make sure that we extended the invite to this subcommittee to all the regions and tried to get good representation. And again, really appreciate your time and the response that we've gotten for this subcommittee. All right, we do have a lot to do, so let's go on.
You want to see the agenda slide or just proceed, Jane?
Just go ahead and proceed.
All right.
All right. So I wanted to talk a bit before we got started about dual enrollment trends, because I am new to this. As many of you know, I've been spending quite a bit of time in your college websites, reading about your admissions process and dual enrollment processes. There's a lot of really good information a lot of you have on that. And then I've certainly gotten together with a number of you to talk about some of the what's going on at dual enrollment at your schools. I even had a few of you were kind enough to send me statistics that showed there was year-over-year growth and really kind of striking year-over-year growth in dual enrollment at the colleges. So I thought it would be good to just talk a little bit about why for me, but also just so I can, you guys can share again across the system what's going on. So just I wanted to ask the question, first of all, is everybody seeing in general year-over-year growth with their dual enrollment? And I know this year is a little bit of a different thing with COVID, but have you seen in general growth in that at your schools? Oh, I'm sorry. Are they, if you're muted, you're going to have to unmute. Yeah. Yes. Okay, good.
For College of the Sequoias, we have, and I believe I sent you over that data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a couple of colleges. And yeah. Go ahead,
yeah,
Brendan.
but so it's every year it's increasing, and I would say I would just put, for us, we haven't been able to disaggregate between concurrent and dual. So our high school population is continuously growing. So I would just say our high school student, not necessarily dual, but just our high school students are participating in early college.
Yeah, why do we think, I was curious as to your ideas on why. I don't trust my own ideas in general, but just from having a daughter who's you know, involved in dual enrollment and her friends, it sounds like a lot of them like it because they don't have to pay for an AP test and they still get college credit. So is this part of it, or do you think there's just more emphasis on this in general?
Yeah, I know in Bakersfield and Kern County, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, we've had partners switch from AP to dual enrollment due to the fees and locking students in. I think it's in October, they have to pay for the test, they don't get a refund, and then the lack of transferability of AP credit and the lack of guarantee.
Yeah.
So that caused a huge growth for us. And then also connecting our dual enrollment to guided pathways. And we call it steering away from random acts of dual enrollment and offering courses with a purpose. So 2 years ago is when we saw our largest growth, and still continue to grow even online and during COVID. So
that's good.
With dual versus concurrent, I don't know if anyone else is seeing this. As our dual is growing, our concurrent is dropping. And to us, we see it as we're just bringing more opportunities to the high school sites. So less of them are having to come to us. So might explain that, but curious if other people are seeing that as well.
Anyone else seeing
And I can speak to Kylie's point. I think when I look at our data, I am noticing certain student types that are in dual enrollment versus concurrent. Like we have more Hispanic students who are doing dual and fewer white students, but more white students come to our campus for concurrent versus dual. So I haven't been able to really engage our high school districts to kind of see, you know, to kind of get an explanation, but just from at a big picture, that's one of the trends that I'm seeing at College of the Sequoias.
And it might need time to see how that trend, you know, moves ahead. So, okay, well, thank you. So the other, you know, thing I wanted to talk about, because this is going to really influence, I think, how we talk about our priorities and how we even talk about working in our requirements, what kind of solutions we propose. Who are the target audiences that we're after? Obviously, high school students are the largest segment. I wondered, what other student populations do we need to consider and ensure that we're representing as we talk about, have discussions on requirements and priorities? You know, for example, I know that Kern works with a lot of incarcerated students at various institutions. Are those considered another brand of dual enrollment or something that's completely separate from that?
Our inmate ed programs have to do all paper applications, and we have to put them into the system, or admissions has to put them in the system. But the other population that came to mind was adult ed. Now that adult ed has legislation for dual enrollment, there are going to be also special admit, but they're not in high school. So.
Right.
Yeah, and those are the updates that were made in the fall to apply for SB 554, right?
Yes, that was that population. I guess one of the reasons why I want to kind of tease this out is to, you know, figure out workflows that are going to cover as much as possible, you know, not just one segment, even if it is the biggest segment. You know, what can we do if we're talking about eliminating sections and, you know, doing the things we want to do to streamline? How can we help do that for adult admits also? Or, you know, are we going to have to take separate paths for that? So just, you know, something to talk about. Okay, anyone else want to chime in on this or chat a question or response? If not, we'll move on. Okay, so we're gonna get to the survey results. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about what we're trying to do with the survey. one of the biggest problems that I think we have is to try to really get everybody involved in setting priorities. Sometimes with meetings, we don't have time to let everybody talk, and some people are more comfortable talking in a meeting, and others not as comfortable. And we wanted to make a means of getting input from you repeatedly. This is really just round one. We're going to do further rounds of surveys on our priorities, but we wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to have their voice heard, be able to look through the ideas that have come across the field and suggest new ones. And then, like I say, we can kind of share this, we can talk about it, we can do another round where, maybe your ideas have changed based on that discussion, and, really try to get some objective input. The Chancellor's office sets our priorities ultimately, but they're always really good about working with us and collaborating. And, this sort of data is really important for them, because then it's not just me saying that this is my idea of what needs to happen. It's really, we want to make sure that we're representing the system. And so we want to provide them with some objective information about what our priorities are and why. So what I thought was really interesting about this is this was the first question we asked in the survey, which is, what would serve our students best? A separate dual enrollment application, a modification of the existing one, or do you not care? Do you really, are you fine with whatever we do, as long as we make sure that we address those requirements? And it ended up being nearly a three-way split between the three, which is, interesting to see. It was split between, definitely I'd say there was a little bit more on a separate application, but equal number said they don't care as long as we meet the requirements, and a large segment was fine with a modification. So I think there's pros and cons on either side, and we can talk about those a little later when we're talking about the requirements. But this is how the voting shook out. Okay, next slide, Britt. So here's how the other questions on the, the list of enhancements that I developed up until about last month in conversations with folks, or through Zendesk tickets or meetings on our top priorities. And really, there were three that shook out over all of them as what everyone seemed to agree was really important. Eliminating the non-applicable sections. That's just huge. And I had heard that in many meetings. So this is certainly supported by our survey that really trying to get rid of the things that don't apply at all to our dual enrollment students is going to be really critical, I think, for success as we move forward. And then also the kind of almost tie there at the top is simplifying the language to the 6th grade level, and then having a clear prompt so that students don't think that when they've created their account, they're done. Having that transition to actually applying and getting the application done. And then, as you can see, there are a couple runners up. Things like identifying students with IEPs and clarifying the CCC ID versus college ID. That came up quite a bit, again, in a number of meetings that I had. Then the ones below identify students with IEP, those were write-ins that people had done. One of which, if you want to move to the next slide, Rick, we kind of show the answers for those. We had some people write in some additional ideas. Oh, okay. Okay, yes. Okay, so go to that. So here are the top priorities. Runner up, one of them was identifying students with IEPs, and then go ahead into the next one, Rick. I should have swapped those slides. So making sure that students with 2 last names are hyphenated, they use their legal name, and that has to match the high school name, and try to make sure that that's all synced up. And then the second one was kind of a really holistic, suggestion that we just, as we look at this, we make a workflow that has everything: the parent approval, the high school principal, and then course approval that actually can pull in the courses from a state database and sync that all up. And I think, yeah, that's definitely, I would say, their nirvana we're trying to get to with dual enrollment. So we're going to do some short-term fixes we hope to get to in the next fiscal year, and then we'll talk about something long-term. I think that is where we want to get to. And then, the third one was really, a general, just saying there's too many questions. We need to eliminate the blockers. And I definitely think that's where we're heading. Okay, sorry, Rick, would you mind going to the previous slide? Because we can dive into this. So any questions on the voting or the requirements? And like I said, this is just a round one. We wanted to start early and we wanted to have discussions and then have follow-up voting to give you guys time as we're talking to, if you think of something else or something different, that we can add in the next round. All right, so what I was hoping to spend the most of our time on is this slide. Oh, if you go back, Rick, to the one on requirements. I wanted to spend the most of our time talking requirements on our top priorities. So the three that we mentioned, eliminating the non-applicable sections, providing a clear prompt to ensure that students transition from account creation to application, and simplifying the language to 6th grade. Let's talk a little bit about that. So thinking in terms of our target, how we have high schoolers and now adult special admits are sort of part of this. I know that high school versus adult is going to be potentially a different approach. For example, things like military, would we want to ask that of the adults, or does that not matter? Are they also paid for or not? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how we can actually eliminate non-applicable sections if we have two populations we're kind of focusing on, that, the high school kids and then the adults. And can you suggest to me, we've talked in meetings about military being one of them, and then the majors being another that we should eliminate. And let's see, what were some of the other lists of sections we could get rid of? Talk a little bit more about do we just eliminate them altogether? Oh, go ahead, Rick. What were you saying?
Oh, just sports, was one.
Sports and like also sports and other programs, right?
Right.
Yeah. Again, high school would be different from college. So maybe what we do is we can have something up front where you send them down a different stream if they're high school.
So for me, I think about if I'm conducting an admissions workshop, I think about questions that students get stuck on, and they feel the need that I need to call my mom, or let's say if it is military, oh, my dad was in the armed services. And then there's other questions that want to ask this year and other specific to their role. And so I think about students who feel the need, like, oh my gosh, let me stop and call my parents to get this information. And if I only have an hour with students, then it kind of takes away from the time. And then questions like what Rick shared with sports, although they may have an interest in sports, but our students will just sit there and ponder on some of these questions that have nothing to do with their consideration to the college or their enrollment or participation in the program.
And yeah, that makes sense. So again, part of this sort of, I guess one of the things that it assumes, and this may be something that we do as part of this effort, is that maybe there's a little bit more of an upfront, I guess, questioning or determining of what type of student they are. Because that's one thing, CCCApply really has, I mean, it's good in one way. And I guess you could say it's challenging in one way for our students, in that there's just one button they click, all of our students, for CCCApply, and that's the same, same application. But the challenge with that is that if we introduce a separate application, what is that workflow going to look like? We'd have to, we're going to have to actually talk to the students up front, whether it's modifying the application and streamlining it or creating a separate one. We're going to have to know up front, who they are and what they do. And I actually saw, when I was trawling through various, admissions websites to try to get a feeling on how they do that. Rick, if you want to let me share for a minute.
You bet.
Thank you, sir. I thought Cerritos did a really great job with this. So I was going to show you what I saw that they're doing. And I was going to ask if anyone else does this, because I thought it really helped clarify what type of student you are, so that you could do these sort of different streams and different decision trees with the application. Let me get on here. Okay, doesn't want to share. Hold on just a sec here. Okay, well, I'm just going to share my desktop and see if I can get that. Can you see the Cerritos College page?
Yes.
Okay, so I thought this was kind of cool. They have this, basically something that shows pictures and says what kind of student you are, and then a description of what that means in what I thought was really simple language. And then you can, click on this and go into, steps that actually give you. They have their own form, obviously, like many of you do. And but this could be the thing where, once they click into that, then they could go, maybe again, it's, either the same CCCApply thing, but at least now Apply would know to, start to do those modifications where we, eliminate sections. Is this a sort of workflow that you're thinking of in terms of what we're talking about? And do your colleges have something similar to this?
I think that this is Sandy from CV Hack. I think the colleges that my consortium colleges have is kind of what Brandon has alluded to. It's just the general CCCApply application, and somebody's there during the application process to try to redirect them to questions that don't apply to them. And I don't think that I've seen any of the colleges that I work with, which is State Center Community College District. There's 4 campuses, and West Hills College, there's 2. Have anything that delineates first time and dual enrollment. But this would be a good start.
Yeah.
As long as there's not a lot of options, because they could not know really what they are. And
right.
Still, I'm a transfer student. I'm going to transfer after I get done here. So I think it's really good start, as long as there's not a lot of choices.
Right. Yeah. And this one has, I thought it was nice. It has 6 choices. And it looks like, even in the way they did it was maybe something that reflects, sort of who are the biggest part of their population, so first time dual enrollment and transfers are kind of at the top. And then reentry, international, returning student, being less of the segment. And so, again, a lot of that, I think that kind of consideration might help. And like you say, we don't want to have too many options, but I think we're going to need to, CCCApply in general, to make the modifications that we're talking about, is going to need to know up front, a little bit more about the student in order to make that decision to remove those sections. So that's kind of what I've been grappling with, is how to make it work, as much as possible across the system, but acknowledging that we might have to have the students go through something like this up front. Yeah,
Hey,
this
Jenny?
is a sort of, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, Gabriella said she likes it, that it's very clear. And Regina said their college has, Regina Miller, that they have the same setup.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, I'm just thinking this might be something that, would have to be a first step. And then you would go into either that separate dual enrollment application. And I think I see as one of the cons of a separate application could be where, if they happen to pick the wrong one, if they happen to pick the wrong application. But, you know, I think it would be the same thing if it was a modified. You're going to end up maybe with some gap in information. So I don't know if it would be better to, you know, say we're going to make these modifications and we're going to just try to put this upfront information so they know to pick the right thing that's going to send them the right path, and realize that we might have some gaps, but in general, we'll have a better student experience. That might be the better choice. So do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like what would happen? I mean, again, it sounds like since most of you are working directly with at least your high school students, I don't know, does anybody work directly with adult admit students, or are those students pretty much just always going straight online?
We haven't worked with adult students yet.
Okay.
But I don't want to give the impression that all of our outreach efforts are face-to-face with students, because sometimes students are absent, and where we see students struggle the most is when they do it on their own.
Right.
We do have and so I presented the limitation because, you know, when we're servicing, you know, 20 or 30 high schools, all we have is an hour. And so, you know, and when you're dealing with different students, different pace, not all students have the same skill set as other schools. But I admit I get very fearful of students who are charged with doing the application by themselves, because that's when they apply for the wrong term or student enrollment type. So that's where it gets a little tricky. And if we can achieve or make it as simple as a student can do it on their own without, if they had to do it by themselves, I'm for it. It's just that, you know, like I said, I just didn't want to give the impression that all of our outreach efforts are in person. Sometimes students have no choice but to do it on their own.
Right. And, you know, the thing that I liked about a lot of the suggestions that I got when we met back in August, Brandon, I mean, they kind of cut across the general application anyway. Things like simplifying the language is really good, and hiding more sections when we know that it doesn't apply to the student because of a previous selection. You know, that's the sort of thing we're trying to do just across the board. You know, because it's not just dual enrollment students that sometimes have a hard time. I mean, there's things like one of the enhancement requests from our general CCCApply group was, why can't we order the terms better so that we can put the next one at top? You know, sometimes it orders it kind of alphabetically. So the problem is sometimes, you know, spring is always going to come after fall. Well, spring might be the next one though, right? So, okay. Well, that's good. All right, so go ahead. Let's switch back to the presentation. Rick, if you want to bring that up, and I'll look at what was the next one. Okay, so a clear prompt to ensure that students transition from account creation to application was our next, like the number 2 of the top 3. And again, I had heard from many of you about how we have a problem with dual enrollment students. And even, I even saw it with some of our student testers where they create an account and think they're done. And so, you know, having a prompt or some sort of clear path that makes sure that they immediately can transition to application at the college of their choice is really, really important. So I don't know if that's going to be something like a button, or we immediately can, you know, present a drop-down list of, you know, hey, now you're on your way, choose your college and apply. And, you know, something like that. We can talk about the specifics later, but, you know, really making sure that that prompt happens. Does anybody have anything else they kind of want to talk about on this in terms of, do we think that, you know, this is articulating the requirement, the business requirement fairly clearly?
I have a question, Jane. It's Mitch Slade. Are you going to talk about later potentially the dual enrollment form process, or is this just the application process that you're trying to tackle for dual enrollment?
I think it's the application process, but I'm not sure. Again, this is my ignorance because I'm new with this topic, but what do you mean by the form?
Okay, well, the application is like just one small piece of the big puzzle for dual enrolled students. You know,
Right.
we get them in our system. That's
Right.
great, but we're tasked. We figure out our own way, of course, to do it with electronic forms. But maybe there might be a statewide solution where the state can figure out a way to create something for high schools to provide the courses that are approved for students in an
Okay.
electronic way, so that
Right.
then we could download that data directly into our system, and the students could be automatically approved for those courses, and we wouldn't have to manually data enter them. It would require a portal of some sort, you know, for
Right.
Yeah, Mitch, this is Deb. I was just having an aside with Jennifer on chat over this, because I was trying to get like, what is the root of the issue here? And that was the note I just sent her, is that we have a good chunk of our colleges right now operating with that dynamic form environment, with that dual enrollment form that was done by NextGen, and wondering if, as we go down this road of conversation, is there a way to merge the two together so that colleges don't have to interrupt their e-form process? And there just might be, I don't know, I probably know enough to be dangerous, Mitch, but it was just going through my head. So
Okay, so that's more on the high school side, where we need to get that information, which is so the courses that are approved are from our course catalog, right? I mean, that's
course numbers, by the course number. And then also we need parent consent too, in a lot of cases if the student's under 18. So being able to acquire electronic signature of parent consent that the student can attend. So we need that, plus something that we could use with an auditor to say this was verified electronically by their school, and we downloaded the courses that they were approved for somehow, you know, like Project Glue, Magic. And then that way schools wouldn't even have to be involved in the additional paper process. It would just be a matter of that student, according to their CCCID, being downloaded into our system and having authorized courses all set to go. So they could just
Yeah, and Jane, the product that a lot of our colleges are using for the dual enrollment, they do it for a couple different things, actually has a routing workflow built in, so that it all turns into a completely dynamic to gather, I think it's the principal signature, the parent signature, all those different signatures on there.
So it could be something where we could integrate with that system if they have an API layer of APIs, right? That we could use to pull that data.
Or I'm thinking too, you know, if you have a way to create a portal like system, like Benjamin Beard, I think his name is, he had an idea with his system where he had a way for parents and principals to be able to go into one portal like system and do approvals. You know, so that's statewide.
Right.
And, you know, being able to just make it so that it's just really self-serve. You have a registered contact in the high school that can go in and look at all the students that said that they attend their school and be able to just say, okay, these are the courses that they can take, you know, approving them. And then just being able to download that data, and then the student can enroll, and just having some forms being routed around, you know, it's
right.
We're taking like an older process and we're making it electronic, but it's still kind of an old way of thinking, you know, of moving a document around for something that's purely just data points.
Yeah.
You know?
And, you know, definitely we should talk about this. And I think this would be a really good thing for me to understand. And then we can add that into our round 2 when we kind of refine our list of priorities and have a second round of voting on them. But you know, I think I'm going to have to dig into that a little bit. I know that you know, Glue already supports pulling courses from the SISs, so we can absolutely do that. I'd need to understand, you know, how that workflow happens today, so that we can understand a little bit better about how we could mimic that in a background process, though. So, yeah. Well, that sounds good. So we have a question from Regina asking about whether it's required to have the specific approved course or not.
Yeah, auditors ask for it. They literally ask for that document, and they say, we see the student was enrolled in this course. Can you show us the dual enrollment form that says that the school authorized it for this course?
Okay.
Yeah, it's not just
and that has to do with funding, right?
Well, yeah, essentially, because a lot of times we're waiving their fees, so not paying anything, but we're still collecting a portion on them. But yeah, we get it all the time. They ask us, show us the course, show us the document, specific document with the course on it. So
okay.
If it hasn't happened to you yet, don't be surprised.
If it does.
Yeah.
And for us, where that comes from, we see that too. The high school has to sign off if they're going to get high school credit for the class. So if they didn't sign that on the form, then it's college credit only, and the student can't use it to graduate early, or that's how we see it in our district with our partners. And that's what their signature is the most important for.
So I thought the high school actually paid for their fees. You're telling me, though, Mitch, that you guys waive it?
So each school has so the high school doesn't pay for any of it as far as I know, but each school, each college district has the option to choose to waive the enrollment fees. Some schools do, some schools don't. A lot are doing it now to encourage that enrollment. So we can waive the fees because of their special admit status. And we still collect apportionment for, the rest of it, but that's what we do.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, that's good for me to know. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. There's a lot I still need to learn about this. So, all right. Any other questions on that? Yeah. Thanks, Mitch.
Do you mind repeating your question, Jane? Before we started talking about.
Yes, I know. We're going to get back here. So, I guess the answer, Mitch, to your question is we are going to talk about these larger workflows, including the forms and the communication between the high school and the college. What we're trying to do, though, is I'm focusing on the apply requirements, because those are the majority. In fact, pretty much everything that I've gotten feedback on or culled through past subcommittee meetings on have to do with kind of the revisions on apply. So focusing on that, but certainly we'll be looking at the broader integrations as well. So this providing a clear prompt to ensure students transition from account creation to application. I'd like to get your guys' input on whether just a button to say, continue to college application would do, or do you think it would be better to have a drop down to, right there to pick their college, and then they go to the college website and then they're off on their way. Any preference on that? And also, do you think that we've articulated the business requirement clearly enough?
I would say, through my experience, at least a prompt to let them know to move forward to the admission, to the college application.
Right.
Because there's two things that happen. Either the students will complete CCCApply and then it'll take them to a welcome landing page. And so for some students, they feel that, oh, I'm done. And I've gotten a CCC ID number. So they think that that's their
college ID.
Yeah. And so what tends up happening in practice is that you'll have a student who said that, let's say, January now, that I completed the application, and when registration season hits and we're processing forms, and then we're finding out that the student never applied, and so it stalls registration, and so I think and I also want to kind of speak to, like, sometimes when students complete the account creation or the account setup. And I may have said this before, is that it doesn't take them straight into the application. I had to have students log out and then go back through CCCApply again, just to get into the college application. And so thinking back on students who may be doing this by themselves, they won't know that piece of information.
Yeah, and I agree. Again, I think these all three of these here are again, they cut across the whole, I think not just for dual enrollment, but apply in general. Right now, we did a survey that we sent out to students in the November timeframe that we asked them if they had any idea what their CCC ID was. And most of them didn't, but a couple that I talked to, our student testers, thought it was their college ID, like you say. So these are, and these are not dual enrollment kids. These are college, older college age kids, and they didn't get that transition and what that ID was doing for them. So yeah, with that, account creation, confirmation, I think there's actually quite a bit we could do, to clean that up, to give a little bit more information and say, this is your statewide ID. It's not your college ID. To get your college ID, continue on, and
a question for you about that.
Yeah.
So in our application, we have the MIS code linked to our apply button in our website. And I believe when you do that, and the student creates an account, they get passed to our school's instance automatically, I think. So if that's the case, it might be wise that wherever the main account creation places that you have listed on CCCApply, instead of you having a button that just says create an account, you make them select the school first. And then you don't allow them to do a generic account to begin with. Because I think that's what it is there's this open, that's the issue probably. If you remove that ability where an MIS code in the link was required, then they couldn't create an account without first starting out with a school.
Yeah, I think part of the thing for that, Mitch, is the idea that you can have an open CCC account and you can apply to multiple colleges. You know, for example, you know, in our area where I live, we've got really three community colleges they could go to. And sometimes if they can't, you know, find their, you know, if they can't find their, everything, all their classes or get in all their classes because they don't have priority, they'll go to others. But, you know, when it comes right down to it, they have to go through that same workflow. They have to still go to all those individual colleges anyway. So, so yeah, I think you might.
Or linking, or on, if you're going from, because I'm assuming maybe this is happening from the statewide level, maybe linking to each college's application page, if you want to do it that way.
Right,
I think the MIS code is key, and that's probably where you have the hole, is that some colleges may not be consistently using the MIS code in their application, and then it doesn't, and then they have that problem where it just goes to nowhere.
Yeah.
To college. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I think we'll take a look at that, and there may be some configurations that we can recommend and have our enabling services team help out with to make that better. But then also, you know, some better language in the confirmation as well. That sounds good. Thanks, Mitch. All right. So it sounds like we do have, I guess, this requirement pretty well documented. So the simplify language to the 6th grade level. Now, I guess for me, this would be something that, you know, we'd have to work pretty closely with some entity that was really focused on this. I know, Jennifer, we've already simplified a lot of our language. Have we worked with anybody in particular on that?
You know, it's been kind of a hit and miss kind of exercise where as we review individual questions, we may take that into consideration, but we haven't done a global review in terms of Lexile level and tying it back to clear language that's not a barrier. And we just had a conversation with our accessibility team yesterday, and that's actually an accessibility issue as well that we want to address from a clarity and Lexile level perspective. And so I think it's a good approach to address that at the same time as we're doing this other work.
Yeah, that does make sense. So,
you know, Jane, on the language and the confusion, I think when we clean up the application with the questions, that may help. But as you and I've had this discussion before, even with our own kids, my son's in college and wanted to just take a gen ed over and transfer it in this semester, transferred into his 4-year. And the questions don't fit. So students get very confused, like, well, none of these, this doesn't make any sense. And like the major, it doesn't make any sense. I'm over here at, you know, Cal Baptist, and
exactly.
I have a major over here. And so maybe that's the cleanup that will help. Maybe it's not dumbing it down, but not, you know, making it a 6th grade level, but streamlining the questions so that they're easy to understand.
Yeah, I think that would be most definitely, you know, the first approach that we need to do is to try to get it all to where it makes sense. And it, you know, that education area can be really, really confusing. But like you say, even just prompting, you know, basically forcing them to choose a major, you know, when that just doesn't always apply. And not really allowing them not to do that or to skip that or whatever. So that is something, and that's, again, that's been requested a number of times. So yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, so those are the top 3. We also had identifying students with IEPs. Is that, so would we just ask them if they have, I mean, students obviously know if they have an individual education plan. So just like a checkbox or something like that, that would say, you know, I have an individual education plan. And is this something that would, well, it's not going to apply across the board for, it would just be dual enrollment for, I guess, high school students.
I would say it would be helpful because for dual enrollment students, I can monitor that or a little bit better than I can for concurrent. And so with that, we don't really catch those students right now. It's basically a manual process of identifying what students need service and how to connect them to access and abilities. And then also we're also dealing with high schools who aren't familiar with our approach to providing service or expectations around providing service to students with disabilities in it. And so being able to have something within CCCApply that will help generate a report, or at least will help us get those students over to access and ability services, will be extremely helpful, because not all of our high schools are forthcoming with that information, nor are our students.
Okay.
For my experience.
Okay, that kind of in general raises the idea of services in my mind, and I wanted to ask, because I was thinking about this, Brandon, and so we had said that, well, you know, certain programs, certain, you know, and majors and things like that might not apply. But what about things like, you know, tutoring? You know, I see on a lot of the applications whether they would be interested in tutoring services. Do we allow dual enrollment students to go to, say, the math lab or at the colleges, things like that?
At COS, yes, we allow them dual and concurrent.
Okay. Okay. So they do have, I mean, these students can actually have access to certain services that we want to make sure that we don't block that entirely, maybe.
I just think about like the expectation that their IEPs will roll over. So I've had some instances where students would like, hey, this is on my IEP, and they haven't gone through the proper channels through the college. And so it's that education piece that's missing.
Right.
And I try to incorporate it in our orientations, but like I said, you know, for our students in concurrent, that's a very independent process. And so there's not someone there to, at least at COS, that's reminding students that, hey, make sure that you are that if you have an IEP or you need some accommodations, that you're going through the proper channel. Nor do I, from my experience working with high schools, they're completely, they don't know how we approach services. And so if we can just identify those students early, we can put interventions in place instead of being reactionary.
Right, right. That makes sense. Okay, so the next step in terms of, you know, these requirements are for you guys to get back to me, reach out to me on anything that's now come to mind as part of this discussion, or things that you wish had been on that survey and that didn't get on the survey. I had some late breaking conversations with some folks like Kylie and Ashleah that I wasn't able to get on the survey because I'd already drafted that. So there may be some like those, but if there's something else that has come up in terms of our discussions here that are making you think, hey, this would be a really great idea as well, reach out to me, because for the second round is going to look similar to the first. It's just we're going to add in some additional suggestions that we receive as we've had these conversations, and we'll do another round of voting. And the other round of voting may be with the broader CCCApply community as well, so they can, you know, they can vote as well. Any questions on that? Okay, and I may be reaching out to you guys as I work through kind of fleshing out the requirements for these, so that we're more clear on some of the details. You know, for example, I'm really going to need to comb through the, you know, this idea of the non-applicable sections by listing all those out, and then we're going to maybe have a roundup meeting where we can really go through every single section and say, you know, yes, in, or does this make sense, does it not, and beat it up to make sure that we've got that requirement set. So that'll be kind of our next steps, and actually that would be a pretty good transition into your housekeeping slide, Rick, if you want to go there. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about just in terms of our requirements and the surveys and kind of what we're hoping to get done with dual enrollment in general? And again, I want to set the expectation that, you know, our spring release, which is coming out in a couple months here, actually 3 months, we want to not set the expectation we're going to get this into that. We need to do some more due diligence and get these requirements nailed down. So this is for our next fiscal year requirements that we'll be negotiating with the chancellor's office. So any questions on that?
Jane, can I ask Brandon a question? Because he brought up the concurrent enrollment. I'm just, and I would ask Jennifer, I'm having just a brain issue here. I thought we had, like, instead of concurrent, we now call it dual, but I hear our counselors on the call, they're still talking concurrent and dual. Can you, Brandon, tell me what the difference is at your campus on that?
Okay, so for us, dual enrollment students are those who take college courses at the high school during the regular school day. And concurrent are those students who come to our campus to take classes or take them online. So it's not bound by the location and time.
Okay, so then dual is bound by the time they come to your campus during regular, like, high school hours or something like that.
So no, dual is at their high school site.
Oh,
So
that's what. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, and then I saw competing things. I was actually scrambling on the other side looking at it. Okay, cool. Do you treat them? Do you treat them differently in the application process, or you just gather that dual enrollment form that needs to be signed?
So the application process looks a little different. Dual, it's a much guided process.
Right.
Either I or the Welcome Center staff or the high schools, there's a lot more intentionality around getting the students through. Concurrent, I would say, probably historically have been your high achieving students, kind of like what dual enrollment, you know, has traditionally been. And so those students are very independent. They complete the admissions application, they complete the form, they work with their counselor, and there isn't really a lot of guidance for those students because of the culture of concurrent enrollment.
Cool. So that was like back when I was in high school. I remember I took a couple classes at the college, and it was just because I was, like you said, I kind of was done with high school and wanted to do more. So that would have been a concurrent situation where dual has very much rules around it. Okay, is that true for everyone then? Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I see concurrent as more of, you know, the high school student is looking across the catalog at what fits them specifically, whereas dual enrollment is very defined. It tends to be offered, you know, a section that many of the students take together at the high school campus. And so, you know, concurrent is maybe I've finished everything that my peers are working on and I need a higher level math class, or I'm going to take this other very, you know, different type of subject or course topic.
So the dual enrollment is where we, you know, definitely have that form you're talking about, which Mitch was talking about earlier, where you have all of that back and forth where you need to understand what courses are offered and all that sort of thing. Okay.
Right. I was just curious because it was interesting, even on the chancellor's office website under dual enrollment, it has parentheses, formally concurrent enrollment. So I just was getting really confused. Like, what are we?
They renamed it recently.
What's that, Mitch? Oh, they just changed it.
Concurrent enrollment used to be the terminology, and then they moved everything that involves high school enrollment for the most part to dual enrollment. Because I think they started out with CCAP courses were using
exactly the dual enrollment. The original dual enrollment was just like those career courses that it was very specific, and they were taught on the high school campus. It looks like, and you got
they have MOUs and all that stuff, and then they just kind of pretty much made that the standard usage. But it's funny because EdCode doesn't call it that either. EdCode calls it special admit.
Right.
And that can actually even extend out even nowadays to your adult school students. So your adult school students who are not traditional high school students can also be dual enrolled as well. So it's kind of expanded.
So from a campus perspective, though, that dual enrollment, they're actually taking the courses at the high school during the high school day, correct?
Well, the CCAP ones are.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are special ones that have special funding, special.
Right, I saw
MOUs.
that. Right.
But then the other ones where you just take classes. There's other possibilities where you can take classes at the college, or even still at the high school, but there's not a special agreement there. They're just using the space and they're taking a class there. It's not CCAP, so it gets kind of in the weeds.
Wow, what a great example of conflicting definitions of things. Because I thought I was doing good, and then I looked at our own website and it said dual enrollment, formerly concurrent. So
right. Well, and that's that's a catch-all. I mean, that's for the primary of what we're talking about here. It's from concurrent enrollment is now dual enrollment.
Got it.
And overall in Ed Code, it's defined as special admit.
So it's basically, you know, all those other permutations have to do again with like how it's funded and how it's organized and what's the guidance that says how it should be done, right?
Right. And like, for instance, special admit students, two of these students that we're talking about, they're exempted from out-of-state fees. They don't have to pay out-of-state fees like regular students if they, you know, are taking classes, you know.
Oh, that helps. Thank you. I got confused by the definition, and I actually sent Jennifer a note on this slide. I was like, okay, I don't want to sound really dumb here, but I need clarification.
You're not dumb. It's just changing all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked, Deb, because that question cleared up a lot for me as well. Thank you.
So you were afraid to ask.
And that's why I try to say high school students, because I know if I start talking dual, it can, because campuses approach it completely different. There's a lack of consensus around how do we turn the correct terminology. Well, I don't want to say a lack of consensus. They just tend to use the words interchangeably. So concurrent, dual. I mean, it's technically the same thing, but to help us organize it at College of Sequoia is we call this group this and we call this group that.
Yep, makes sense.
Imagine how the students feel.
I know. I was just thinking about that. I'm like,
well, yeah, it's funny, you guys. I sit on so many different like committees and advisory things, and I will tell you, like, defining terms is a common issue I run into. Like, wait a minute, you're calling it this CVC OEI, you call it the exchange, you call it this, what is it? You know, so that we all know what we're talking about. So, well, good. Thank you for clearing that up. I'm glad I didn't sound too uninformed, because I didn't even want to ask, but thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I think, Rick, you and I should, in our notes, maybe highlight these terms and what they mean. And that way we can have everyone, you know, confirm that or not. And then at least, you know, we'll all be on the same page.
And I could, Jane, put a list of these terms, you know, with definitions on our, you know, on our CCCApply page or our dual enrollment page, wherever it would be.
Yeah, that sounds good. Actually, we should probably just start off putting on the dual enrollment page and in these notes, and then we can, you know, have folks refine it, and then we can, you know, maybe also post it on CCCApply as well.
Okay.
Sounds
cool.
good.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Because yeah, these things really do matter, and as I learn, it's important that I'm going to be articulating these requirements in the right way. So thank you.
Thanks. There's no Kylie there too.
Yeah, so. Kylie says she slashes them together, and that's great unless you start getting like Dr. Seuss where you're slashing a bunch of things, right?
And then I think, Jane, from our perspective, it's like, is the process the same though? And then the campus does what they want. You know, locally, the college does what they need to do. Like Brandon, they treat them a little bit differently, but is the process from the system the same?
Right. And it sounds like I would say yes, maybe in terms of the application, but no, in terms of what Mitch brought out, the whole, like, you know, start to end would be different. But the application part, where if you're dealing with a high schooler, I think of any sort, the application hiding things that don't make sense, you know, to that high school student, you know, that's the sort of stuff that I think.
Or I'm even thinking like having the college should have the ability to have flag students, like these students coming through are dual enrollment students, or maybe it happens already. And I just, again, I'm uninformed again, but.
I think it's one of the choices in the educational section, I think does to some extent, but I think that's a good question because maybe it's the same. I mean, at that point, if they're saying, I'm going to be taking this while I'm in high school, it could be concurrent or dual, right? It could be, or actually if it's the same, it could be, you know, the student taking the classes at the college or not. So one clarifying question that I do have, yeah, and several students do both. Yeah. One question I do have is, so our student, anytime a high school student is taking a course, whether it's, at their high school and with the, approval, the CCAP things that Mitch was mentioning, or whether they're taking, calculus at the college and actually attending classes, is it free to them as long as they're a high school student?
Well, it depends on the school.
Okay.
So schools who waive the fees, yes, but some
So
schools,
that's a local decision then?
yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. So concurrent as the non-CCAP dual enrollment. Okay. So that kind of indicates the funding there. So that's a thing that I don't know, could or could not have bearing on, as they go through that application process, right? And the problem is the student, there's nothing I think we could actually ask the student that would make sense to them whatsoever about are you one or the other, right? I mean, all we can have, all they can be expected to understand is I'm in high school and I'm taking college.
Well, that's where you go to simplifying that language, Jane. I mean, they don't know concurrent dual. Heck, we didn't know concurrent or dual, and we're on a committee talking about it. So
exactly. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is for the colleges, and this is the conflict that often happens with, I think, CCCApply is, we need to ask it in a way that's understandable to our user. That's what we need to do to serve them better. But at the same time, a lot of times the colleges are interested in another layer of information that they can't necessarily always get from the student, right? That the student can't be expected to know. But the colleges, it would be helpful for them to have that information if they can get
Well, and if they want to do CCAP, like to identify a CCAP student, maybe they should just use the cohort tool that's part of CCCApply.
Right.
I'm talking about where you create a specialized link and you can download that.
Yeah.
That's a solution, because the student, you're right, will not know that they're CCAP.
No, exactly. So, in trying to figure out a solution that's going to address the college's needs, but still be, still be friendly to the student, we might need to be creative about stuff like that.
Yeah, you could just create a paper on how to use the cohort tool. And the linkage.
Yep. Okay, that sounds good. I have a nodding acquaintance with our cohort tool, Mitch. So I will have to add on my, things I need to learn up on. Okay, well, thank you. This was a really great discussion. Does anybody else have anything else they want to bring up? And like I say, please reach out. I'm always happy to talk about what's going on at your colleges. It helps me keep our whole process of doing requirements and development, keep it real. So.
Thanks, Jane.
Yes, my pleasure. So Rick, over to you, sir.
Okay, real quick, do you know that this is here, that this space is here? We have our own little space here on Confluence for our meetings and our, just general information. Like I just typed in an action item for Jane and I about the table of terms. I'm sending out the links. Is everybody able to access this? Just wanted to make sure you knew about it. You can always get to the CCCApply user group, the main page, there's a link in my signature at the bottom of my email. And so, you can always go here and then go to the year. And then, from there on down, you can go to the subcommittees. So any questions about that?
I like that, Rick. Where you are, all things apply.
Yeah. Okay. So let me go back to the slide deck and our you covered this, Jane?
I didn't cover our emails and stuff. I'm hoping everyone has that, but there we are if you want to get a hold of us.
Okay. So a couple of things. We've been adding your names as you send them in. You don't have to send them to Jane. You could send them to me, which would, because I'm the one that is doing it. And I'm adding.
He's way more organized too. So definitely he's your better bet.
Yeah. And we have, we do different things. We help each other out in different ways. So, you can send your name if you want to be added as a member, or someone at your college wants to, be in on this meeting, as well. Student testers, we're going to continue to need student testers. So as we do more rounds of testing with them, developing these various requirements and so on. So if you have a student tester or several, we'll always give out a gift card as an incentive. You can just send their names to me and just say, you might not hear right away, but we'll get you in the next round. Or I should say, we'll get your student in the next round.
And yes, so high school students are welcome with this. So those of you who are here from high schools, we would like to have those testers too. Typically, we ask them to apply and tell us what worked for them or what didn't, or what looked wonky to them. Thanks, Jen. I'm glad you added that. Yeah, it's great. And then the Confluence space, now we thought we'd figure out when, first of all, about our next meeting date. How often do you guys think we should meet? And then when would that be? Yeah, and I wanted to bring this up because I would like to meet in another couple months. That doesn't mean we're always going to meet every 2 months. I think with Patty, it was every quarter typically. But I would actually like to make it a little sooner if that works for you guys. Just again, because I'm going to be, avoid registration seasons. Yeah, I'm going to be, working on these requirements. So if you guys want to just chat what you think a good time would be, maybe looking at end of March, beginning of April, if that is a decent time, we can certainly push it out a little bit, or even, pull it in if we wanted to. But, why don't you chat what would be a good sort of month or few weeks that would work, like you say, avoiding your registration. And March tends to be a lot of spring breaks. Right. I'm wondering if we should just say early April. What if we did the first week in April and aimed for in there? Does that work for you guys? No objections? Afternoon, or if we just continue to do it Thursday, is morning or afternoon better?
I would say afternoon because the schools are closed.
Yeah, it seems like afternoon's a little bit more open, and Thursdays seem to be a little more mellow. So Thursday afternoon? Yep. Oh, good. Okay. And we've got people saying that the first week of April is looking good. So thank you, Regina. Thank you, Kylie. Let's see. So that would be April 1st. All right. I like it. Or we could go, the 8th, April 8th. Any preferences? Does it matter? First or second week in April? 1st or 8th? Actually, you know what? I think somebody said the 8th. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to be on my 30th anniversary trip with my husband that week. The week of the 8th.
I think a lot of us, I know we all have different registration times, but earlier April for us is our registration, and we have open towards the end of April, which is when our concurrent students can register, but it's all a mess. I shouldn't say a mess. It's all busy, good busy.
If we did the either third week in April or the last week in March. I know again, March is often often spring break. What about March 25th? That would be the last week of March. Or would April 1st be better? Anyone care? yeah, I'm looking here at my calendar just to make sure, because I know I am off one of those weeks. So let me check here. So yeah, I'm off the week of the 5th. So it would have to be either the 1st or the 15th. So we will, I think what we can do is let's shoot for the 15th. And then if anyone, if we hear from a bunch of people that that's a terrible time, we can try to pull back and go for an earlier time. Sound good?
It looks like we have a couple of 15ths responding. That's nice.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll make it the 15th.
Yeah, let's do that. Thanks everyone for your flexibility again. Much appreciated.
All right. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
Okay, great. Again, thank you very much. Really, I've just been pretty amazed at how much thought and how much you guys have been willing to put up with my ignorance and helping to get me spun up on all that we need to do to make this better for our dual enrollment students. So I'm very much looking forward to working through all of this with you and, you know, seeing how the application takes shape.
And just a final thank you for taking the survey, those of you that did.
Yeah, please do. When we send these to you, we try to keep them to like, you know, 8 questions or really fairly quick. Please do participate as much as you can. This really is, you know, a way to have your voice heard. And we will bring this, you know, before the chancellor's office and it's going to have an impact, I think, in our negotiations. So thank you.
Jane, really quick, this is Anna. Do we have access to the recording?
Yeah, so Rick will put that out.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll put it up on here, and it'll be on our dual enrollment. So I'll load it right here under agenda and deck.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you.
All right.
All right, thanks everyone.
Great discussion.